Hi, I'm Rupali Mehra bringing you Firstpost Conversations. The 2019 national elections have been very different from any other election we have seen so far. If in 2014 one party understood the power of social media and used it to their advantage, today all other parties are doing the same. In the last 5 years, the number of users of smartphones and of data has more than doubled. And most people, most first-time users who access news are doing so either via social media or on messaging apps. But are these people, are we as citizens really verifying whether the news that we are forwarding and sharing with others is fake news or is it fact? Are we really taking the trouble to do so? And are we actually helping crack down on fake news? What about trolls? Are we taking part in trolling because it reaffirms our own personal biases? Today's conversation is on fake news and trolls and how it's shaping public discourse, especially in election season. You're watching Firstpost Conversations with me, Rupali Mehra. And joining us today on Firstpost Conversations is Shaina NC. Shaina, you have been in the midst of an intense election campaign, braving the heat and dust and of course the social media trolls that come with elections. Also joining us is Mahima Kukreja. Mahima, you again have been at the receiving end of trolls on social media. We would of course like to hear on how you combat that. And Pankaj Jain. Pankaj, you have again been at the forefront of fighting fake news and calling out fake news through your website SM Hoaxlayer. So quickly, if we can take 30 seconds each to define fake news. This is a term that has become a part of our daily discourse really. But what do we mean by fake news? Is it news that is absolutely false, or is it news that's been distorted partially? Is it something that has been again changed to reconfirm our own biases? How do you really read it? Let's start with you, Shaina.
So I think fake news is a combination of mischief to start with, in the political space, sometimes political vendetta, and of course rumors and gossip that the whole world thrives on. They can continue to say that, oh, we don't want to believe it, but they'd love to believe it for a bit. So I think it's a combination of factors. Having said that, I think the authenticity of news is something we all need to be collectively very conscious towards, because it's not about a legal responsibility or a moral responsibility. It's just about doing the right thing as citizens in the social space and in the social media space. So I'll give you one odd example. Like on WhatsApp, you see so many chats. I mean, there are chats and chats which have also given the NDA and BJP 400 plus, which is great to think that this could be possibly true, and you know it's factually incorrect and it's fake news.
Right.
And then there are others who want to completely lambast Prime Minister Modi, and they give you like, oh, we are down to 170 and 160, which is also fake news. But
well, they're talking about exit polls. So really, exit polls is something which you really don't know finally what is going to.
Exit polls is one thing, and people who pretend to be very knowledgeable on facts, on ground, and position as if they know what the end result is, that is a fake news.
And Mahima, very quickly, 30 seconds on what you define as fake news or what you perceive as fake news.
I think it's weaponization of misinformation, which is used by political parties to further their narrative. And in the age of social media, it can make or break a person and a party. So it's been used as a weapon and it's been very successfully used.
Right. What about you, Pankaj?
Fake news is a very vague term. It's actually a combination of misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. So there are many things including it. In 2015 when I started, it was like from my uncles and aunts sitting about something about a cold drink or something. But now it has developed a whole lot in political, in fact leading to violence and like character assassination kind of thing.
You have been sort of at the center and one of the keen movers of tracking down and cracking down on fake news. How have you seen a change over the years, the complexion of it and the sophistication of it? Because it is getting more and more difficult to check whether a video is really fake or not.
Right. So as I said, I started in 2015.
Yeah.
So it was totally sort of pranks and small things like NASA releasing a video of aerial view of Diwali of India, kind of those kind of things. They were not harmful actually, but it all boomed up by, I would say, after demonetization, because there was so many GPS chip, of course, And there were so many, and then it took over completely to political angle, communal hatred and religions, etc. So it has changed a lot. It has come a long way, and now it's in the most dangerous form currently. And in fact, December elections, assembly elections, and this election has given us like hours of time to work on.
The most amount of
Right.
fake news.
Over the last few months.
Last few months.
In the
Elections.
In the run-up to the
Leading up to the
elections.
elections.
So what exactly goes on? I mean, so one is fake news, and a lot of the fake news, in fact, one would say as much as about 80 to 90% of the fake news is shared through social media or is shared through messaging apps. What exactly goes on in, say, a social media war room of a political party? What kind of data do you have access to, and what kind of messaging is really produced there?
So I think that they need to have damage control, because moment you have a story which is spinning and it's becoming big and you need to contain it as a political party, that I would term as part of your strategy. But with fake news, the fake comments, I mean, if you look at the lowest of low at this time, this election, and I'm talking about the dignity of the Prime Minister's office. You've called him Chaukidar Chor hai, you've said Anpad Gawar hai, Neech Aadmi hai, Aurangzeb hai. So all of this is also fake commentary. I don't think you can term it as fake news.
As
but
trolls.
It is, yeah, but it trolls.
Real-life trolling.
And then you have a huge segment of society that stands in solidarity with the Prime Minister and says that this is the most hardworking, honest Prime Minister we've ever seen. So why is there this kind of a reaction? And then they come out and bash. So I think it works both ways, and social media is a free and fair forum where you can express yourself. But what is worrying is when you have areas of national security, when it comes to terrorism, when it comes to nationalism, you can't have people spreading their own agenda.
Right. So how do you counter it, and how do you track it down really in a party social media war room?
So I think there are 2-3 things. One is,
Because
of course,
BJP has really been, at the forefront of
Yeah.
having a social media war room way back in 2014 itself.
yes, and a very successful one, if I may add, because we have a lot of IT professionals who know how this entire system works. If you ask the layman, obviously, as a spokesperson, I would toe the party line. But there are lots of die-hard Modi fans or BJP fans who are sitting out there and waiting with daggers drawn to hit out at people who spread any kind of misinformation or wrong information or fake news or fake commentary. So I think it works collectively. It can't be maneuvered. There has to be a public sentiment, because otherwise it's all stage managed.
But it isn't just about people who are waiting to counteract any fake news. It's also about trolling people who may have another point of view. Mahima, you are a perfect example of that.
I mean, I don't think it's true that people are there like waiting to defend the truth. I think it's the very opposite. There are people out there waiting to distort the truth, to have a convenient narrative that furthers their political agenda. In my own personal case, I've noticed and I've criticized both Congress and BJP, and there's been an organized mob-like attack, especially on outspoken women online, where it was so well orchestrated that there was a point where I had to like block 1100 people in a day. And it's mostly right-winger, extremist, bigoted people hiding behind a computer, and it's very well organized to the point where I have to question where it's coming from. Like, who has so much time and energy to spend? Is it paid? Is it just the zeal of supporting someone that you truly believe in? What is it? We have to question it, because it's fair in a democracy for people to have real facts and for them to be able to make a decision based on that.
Right. And would you want to counter that? Or do you think that it is?
No, I think she's entitled to being a legitimate voice of dissent,
Right.
if it is the case. And I want to say with all humility, to believe that you're being trolled only because you've spoken up against is not the actual factual reality, because in a democracy you're bound to have counter opinions. Look at the most controversial statement made in recent times, where the Prime Minister has come out and condemned. So I think it requires
Right.
courage of convictions to also come out and say that, listen, somebody has said something wrong, we do not subscribe to it. So vigilantism cannot be attributed to a party. You can't have moral custodians of society or moral custodians, self-proclaimed moral custodians, suggesting that they are the viewpoint of a political party.
I think how quickly it is condemned and how strongly it is condemned sends out a statement. And if you hold power and authority over a country, your actions are very closely monitored and you send out a message to the youth. If you believe in hate or do you believe in secularism and peace, and how quickly you deal with it and in the words that you use, that makes a huge difference.
That's a fair point. I think that is a fair point coming from somebody who is young, somebody who is very active on social media as well, and somebody who in fact, you know, you do get a fair share or more than your fair share
Absolutely
of trolls, I would say. But any positives? I mean, social media is here to stay, right? And social media today is being condemned because it is difficult to differentiate between fake news and real news. Now, but is there any positive that we can take away from social media?
Yes, there are many actually. I mean, I just observed last night, and it's still going on. One guy tweeted few photographs of his daughter claiming that she's being tortured and for dowry and this, and for a few photographs that with scars and all. And that guy who just created his Twitter handle and has hardly any followers, now he has 7,000 retweets. It's being retweeted by celebrities, directors. So of course, and people are tagging police into it. So there are, you know, there are points where if one goes to police directly, they are very reluctant to write down an FIR. But when it comes through this social media and saying, they have to, and that's far, and the judgment is delivered very fast. So yes, and of course those, I'm a big supporter and appreciator of that. There's a handle called Blood Donor.
Yeah.
So it works perfectly well. I mean, I have used it for my relatives. When I tell them that I need this blood, they have got million of followers, something. So it goes out and people start getting it. So there are many positive points too.
What would you say in terms of just social media and its use? You've seen both sides of it. What would be the negative?
So I think you have to come with a disclaimer which basically says you're ready for whatever's on it. You can express yourself, there'll be opinion, counter opinion, there can be trolling, there can be harassment. I too have been a victim of social media harassment where I've gone to the police station, complain. So everybody goes through it at their own level. My kind of dealing with it would be different from hers to his to yours. So I think that you have to be ready and fair and only then come on this space. And if you feel that your opinion is going to be viewed or misconstrued by a certain segment of society, and if you're not in public life or in politics, it's your prerogative if you want to be on that space or not. So I just feel that, and to give too much, with due respect, too much, priority to it is also wrong, because eventually there's nothing like grassroots human connect. And we do realize that somebody sitting like a couch potato who's sitting on a laptop and constantly going this cannot be the sentiment of crores of Indian people.
I'd like to add one thing to her point. You also might, everybody would be knowing, they use a tag, forwarded as received, along with the messages they are forwarding. So this actually means that, okay, I don't know anything about it, but I'm just forwarding it, just for the heck of it.
Right. So those are some of the, in fact, those are some of the actions that have happened after there have been some very, very dangerous results,
right,
and dangerous outcomes of fake news going viral. And
that have led to lynching of 3 guys in Jharkhand for kidnapping.
Exactly. So but is that actually enough? Are social media companies and doing enough to counteract this kind of fake news, which can lead to very dangerous
the thing
outcomes?
is, this entire mess going on is our construction. I cannot hold a social media responsible.
Right.
Like for example, WhatsApp. It's just giving you a medium. It's just giving you a medium. Like I'm talking to you over a cellular network. If I'm saying something to you, if I'm spreading a rumor to you, can I hold that cellular network responsible for it?
But it also, the other way of looking at it, one would say, is that more and more citizens are getting onto sort of data and are getting onto smartphones faster than we expected. In the
Yes.
last 5 years, it's almost doubled. Now, the first point of access for many people is actually either a social messaging app or the social media. Yeah, and that's where they consume news. So it is very difficult for somebody who has not been on social media to actually make that difference between a fake news and a real news. So you can't put the onus just on a citizen, one would say.
Exactly, but then again, see, 2 years back, 3 years back, my data was 2 GB per month for 200 rupees. Now it is, things have, the entire calculation have changed.
Which is not a bad thing actually.
Which is not a bad
so
exactly, but then how it is, so when somebody is saying that I'm forwarding which has later, I made a image which went viral, that it's somebody is dying because of you. You are to be held responsible. It goes on your conscience. People should know that we are part of something which may go wrong.
And that's when I think,
But there are lots of positive campaigns also which have worked. Like, for example, I'll tell you, I championed this cause on child sex abuse, saying that, we should hold the commercial child sex abuse where the client is as guilty as a perpetrator of crime, and the kind of public momentum and support I got, that we could actually make a legislation on an issue which was untouched and untalked about, and it's all thanks to social media. So there are lots of positives. You talked about blood donors, blood donation, lots of social good when it comes to causes of calamities where people come out and say that we'll donate, we'll help, and stories where people's lives have changed. Look at what the Indian Railways have done, whether it's a case of somebody losing baggage and on just a single tweet, or Sushma Swaraj and how she's rescued people. So there are lots of positives also, rather than getting into...
There are a lot of positives. But if one was to, there is a phrase called data is the new oil, and this was a phrase which was actually coined by a mathematician, but recently popularized by a magazine. Now, if I kind of extend that and say that social media is the new political weapon when it comes to elections, what has really been the role of political parties and their affiliates when it comes to actually spreading maybe news which is not really credible or even fake news?
There are, I don't know how much political party themselves are involved, but there are supporters. Everybody has supporters, and they are like so well organized. Just as I told you before, somebody having 20 followers, they post something very disturbing video, claiming something different.
Yeah.
Like it's a video, it's a 6-year-old video, but they're claiming that this is yesterday's, this is happening yesterday. And that goes for, they get 4,000, 5,000 retweets. So it has to be like, they are very well organized, they know what to do. And that's a mob mentality. So yes, and this happened in December 2018, before and after elections. Before for affecting the voting, and after what actually once the results are declared, so out of frustration they created.
Would you agree with that, Shaina? Do you think that it's almost a well constructed, well defined team of people who are putting out these fake news via maybe a WhatsApp or via sort of Twitter or Facebook?
I mean, I do believe that there are supporters and there are anti-supporters. They work in their manipulated ways because they obviously have an agenda. But to say, like for example, the Indian voter, I think is way too intelligent to fall into the trap of who's saying what. I will give you an example of elections where I remember we were campaigning at the Delhi elections where actually the AAP won. And there too, it is the voter that determines what the public sentiment is, which we take in good spirit because that's the beauty of a democracy. Somebody wins, somebody loses. Right now, if we talk about 2019, there was a vicious campaign to say that, oh, Modi ji is on his way out, and oh, the BJP and NDA will not get the numbers. And the mandate seems to be absolutely the opposite. So I don't think that it can be a manufactured scheme, but it is public sentiment.
Can I add something? Earlier you were mentioning something about that we have to take it with a pinch of salt. At the end of the day, it's grassroots and not just only social media. I would have to really disagree because I'm not talking about the last elections, but 2019, WhatsApp is grassroots.
Right.
It is accessible by our domestic workers, it is accessible to
Vegetable
our fruit
sellers.
sellers, it's everywhere. And it is a weapon at this moment that's been used to create sentiment of in favor of a certain political party or by certain supporters. And we will be fools to deny that. And the truth is, like, once fake news goes out and it goes viral, even when it's debunked, the truth isn't shared as much as the fake news has already been shared. So
That's
if the
a
fake,
crucial point, I
if
would
the
say.
fake video has 5,000 retweets and if he's tweeted something about this is fake and it has 300 retweets, it's not going to make a difference. The point and their agenda is to spread it and then worry later if it's true or not and if people will get to know or not, because they have done their job already.
I think Mahima has raised a crucial point. When she is talking about fake news getting forwarded and going viral far more than a fact-checked news, and where fake news is called out goes viral. That doesn't really. So the number of people who are still consuming and believing in fake news is far more in terms of percentages.
Yeah.
China.
So I think that's true even for TRPs. I mean, you look at the way the media spins a story that has come on, and without the veracity of it or the authenticity of it, sometimes. But having said that, as she said, WhatsApp is now reaching out to one and all. So it's not to suggest that if there is one narrative, there isn't a counter narrative. Both narratives could be wrong, and both fake news could be wrong on either side of the ideology. So I would only want to say that still I maintain that the Indian voter is extremely discerning, extremely intelligent, and knows exactly where to press the button.
But when a political party leader or somebody who is in the public space and is politically affiliated gives either retweets or forwards a post or shares it again on Facebook, then they are almost giving a sanction to that fake news. Won't you agree?
I agree with that, and I don't think we should give sanctity to any fake news, irrespective of which ideology it promotes.
A young voter, say someone like you, gets affected tremendously by social media and what they consume on social media, whether it is fake news, whether it is factual news. How influenced are they really, and how does it decide the way their ideology shapes?
100% entirely. We only consume our news and information from social media. No one's picked up a newspaper in I don't know how long. So our generation entirely dependent on social media and dependent on who we are following.
Okay.
And basically there's an echo chamber that happens once we start following a certain kind of narrative, and the people we follow are the people they follow are the people same narrative. And it's very hard to find people who are very unbiased and will look at both sides and then make a decision. It's you fall into a trap on either side and then you will defend it and you will vote for it.
All right. I think a very balanced words coming in from a youngster, really, without, jumping on one side or the other. So very interesting there. But what really makes people want to, say, forward a message without verifying it? You've been studying this for a while. Do they feel a sense of duty or a responsibility that they must share the message with people they know and maybe even acquaintances?
There are two things in this. One, people think while forwarding that they are contributing to the group. Okay, so they are not silent, because many people say that you are part of the group and you are just consuming, you are not contributing.
Okay.
But that is a smaller part. Main part is the best point, the largest point is biasness and prejudice.
Yeah.
So if they believe in it, and even if they don't believe in it, they don't even open the video. They just look at the text following it, and they keep on forwarding
They
it.
don't even care if it's
Yes,
fake
they
or
don't.
not.
They don't
So
even care.
that's not-
That just suits their own perspective. That's all.
Yeah. It's not. I mean,
So it's reaffirming their own bias.
they
Right,
genuinely-
it's entirely
it
going on
genuinely
biasness.
It doesn't matter to them it's fake or not. If you tell them it's fake, they will still
They
forward it.
defend. In fact, I have told I'm part of many groups, so I give them proof that this is wrong. So how does that
They
matter?
don't
They
care.
tell me, how does that matter?
Shaina, have you been on
So
groups
in
where you've actually
conclusion-
called out this fake news?
In conclusion, it comes back to the same point, which is the moral responsibility, even if not legal responsibility. We as citizens pretty much need to know what we're promoting and why we're promoting.
I'll end with a tweet that I read today. It is about a journalist and her TED talk, in which she says that social media was supposed to unite us and get us all together, but it has resulted in dividing us. Your thoughts on that, and where do you see how can we really change the direction in which we are? Shaina, with you first.
I just think the moral responsibility, as I said earlier, is intrinsic. It should be a value system. And that's why when organizations like the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh focus on value system and ideology and thought process, nation building has to be number one. And if you're able to think of your nation first, you won't do any wrong.
I think it goes much beyond moral responsibility of the citizens. It is a moral responsibility of the corporations and big media houses, including social media apps and websites, for them to put a stop to fake news. Once they can track quickly if it's fake or not, and they very quickly track keywords which know that the tweets that are going around are fake, they should immediately get it off the website. And it's possible, and it's much deeper rooted. It's about data privacy, the government's involved,
Encryption.
it's a whole lot of many important people with a lot of money and influence involved, and it has to go beyond citizenship. It has to go to the level of governments and corporations taking responsibility.
Pankaj?
It's basically a gun, a machine gun. Now, whether a police is using it or a terrorist is using it. So, social media is a gun. But I would like, she was talking about somebody taking off the tweet or post, but when it comes down to Messenger, they are encrypted. So, I hold every person responsible forwarding it.
So you're saying that
It's
onus
all
lies on the
it's all
citizen.
lies on us, right? It's all lies on us.
Right.
Somebody is telling me something wrong, but it's on my duty to check whether it's right or wrong, and I'll tell if anybody is looking at not to forward anything without verifying. That's all. Not to share or forward anything without verifying.
Yeah, so we have a consensus on that for sure.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us on First Post Conversations. Thanks, Shaina. Thanks, Mahima. And thank you, Pankaj.